your voice through here. I was like,
Yeah.
we're in.
You're in the podcast world. Well, Janoah, welcome to the podcast world. Welcome to DNMs with Dean.
Dean, it's great to be in the podcast world.
It's nice, isn't it? It's nice. I think you don't often get to shut the rest of the world out for a brief moment and chat with someone, and you realize how much you can actually connect with the person when there isn't a phone, when there isn't other people, there isn't all these other flashing, shiny things going on. You actually just have a single person for a brief amount of time, and you go, oh, you actually figure that person out a little bit more.
It's true, because even often catch-ups are like cafe, coffee, and I'm aware of this, but I still can't help myself. I'm sitting there chatting to you, and I like look over there quickly and look over here quickly, and I've lost that bit of engagement.
There's a lot of shiny objects.
Surrounded by them.
Yeah, which is, it's not a bad thing, but it's just, I guess, why are you getting distracted all the time by different things? And why aren't you centering yourself more to actually go, what do I need to do? Because I guess a lot of what you do with your work is giving people the tools to be able to center themselves to actually make the right decisions that they need to make and not be distracted by all these other things in life that drag them down paths that they don't actually want to go down, but they don't know themselves well enough to go, well, what do I actually want to do? What are some of the things that you've implemented in people's lives to help them kind of center themselves and actually figure out what they want to do with themselves?
Well, the real simple thing is using like breath and body, because they're the things that we always have access to, that are always there. And they're probably the two things that when we grow up, we're taught to disconnect from, like feeling. Even as a child, when you think about it, right, when you might see a kid there crying or angry, and well, don't be sad, don't cry. And that's already saying, like, don't feel what you're feeling. And we are never taught the power of, if you're feeling heightened, stressed, whatever it is, it's okay to feel that. Feel into it, into your body. And then also, here are some ways that you can help yourself feel better, which aren't watching a movie, eating food. And again, that's all very, and to your point around, why we're so externally focused. That's what we're taught, right? Again, it's like, sit down and watch a movie, watch something else, here, have some food, something else, listen to someone, help calm you. We're not ever taught how to really self-soothe. And we innately know these things as children. Like, we know how to soothe. That's, when you shake, tremor, cry, they're natural self-soothing tools that we have, and we detrain ourselves. So often when I'm working with people, it's like, first part is just getting back to the real simple basics, like, how are you breathing? A little hyperventilating chest breath. When you're feeling anxious or stressed, what do? Do you search for something external? Do you pick up your phone? Do you text someone, text a guy or a girl to get valid? What is it? Do you drink? And then look at, well, when you see that reaction, how can you shift to something simple like, how am I breathing right now? Or can I take, literally, like, breath is the most potent tool we have to change your state in real time, in the moment. You know that. You work with breath, right? It's just the simplest way. We overcomplicate things. It's like, within 5 certain stops of breath, you can go from here to here and be like, oh, I didn't need to knock back that bottle of wine or whatever it is.
Can change your whole day.
Yeah, and even that there, like, doing that breath work with you just then was great, and it actually also was a nice thing to connect, like, us two doing it together, like, and now let's zone in together. Yeah,
I've found that every time I do a podcast now, I try and do breath work, because we just talked about this just before we started, with no matter how good you get at something, there's still a certain level of nerves that come along with doing it, but like nerves and excitement are the exact same thing wrapped in a different wrapper. And it's like, I'm excited to do this podcast, but there's also some nerves within that. And it's like the breath just like settles that, and it calms that.
Yeah.
And it goes, okay, like, it helps you understand it as well. And I think if you're about to go into anything that you've got excitement or nerves, like, focus on your breathing, and then it'll help center yourself to then actually get the most out of it.
Yep.
But like you said before, we lose track of that in today's, well, like you say, you grow up, you become older, and it's one of those things that it's in, like, the things we should probably do the most of, we find the most excuses why not to do them.
Yeah.
and we always push them to the side.
Yep.
And it's, I think, being consciously aware of why you're pushing that to the side, and then figuring out how, like, that as a basis of just like do 10 minutes a day of just focused breath work or breathing, which is so simple. And it might just change not only your whole day, but your whole life, because that'll build on itself as well.
Yep. Well, it's also really important to, the reason why we practice things is to become familiar with them so we can use them in the moment, like training for a big race, training for a big game, preparing for a speech. And so similar here, by practicing, whether it's meditation or breath or whatever it is, you become familiar with that calm state or familiar with that practice. So in the moment when you are about to jump on stage or go on a date or have a podcast interview, you're like, oh, I remember what to do because I've done it before. And then it becomes something that's in like your toolkit, as opposed to something you only try to use when you're in a fucking hole and you've had no practice really with it. And so it's not familiar, and it's even harder for you to, like you said, move to the things you know you should do if you haven't become super familiar with them. Because when you are heightened and when you are stressed, you revert to something you can control, which is familiar and the known. And if for you that is watching TV or drinking or sex or whatever it is, that's what you'll go to. So it's also retraining what your default is to the point where it becomes familiar to you, so it's easier to get there again in real time when you're really going through it.
It's not like cramming for a test.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shit's gone wrong now. Now we've got to quickly,
Right.
now we quickly got to fix it. It's like, no, it's got to be continuous.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned before, when you mentioned those like short, sharp breaths and how that can change a person's personality, I did like that Wim Hof breath work once, and I did it. And I've never done it by touching someone else or being like, I was on a couch and I was laying next to a girl and we were both doing the breath work, and she had really short, sharp breaths. And I was like, no, like do long, continuous ones, because like just like that. And I was like, your whole personality or your anxiousness or your stress all comes from you breathing like this.
Correct.
And I'm like, breathe long, breathe deeper, put purpose into it. And you could feel her whole, because I've never obviously been touching someone while their breath has shifted from sharp, aggressive breaths to like long, smooth, deep breaths. Her whole body relaxed and completely sunk back into like the couch she was laying on. And I was like, I've never physically felt the change in someone's entire body shifting from just their breath shifting. And like you said, it's just like that one thing of like, you're already breathing, but just do it with more purpose within it.
That is the power of breath awareness, in the sense of, if you're experiencing anxiety, for example, it may not actually be purely because of your life circumstance. It may be because of how you're breathing. It could be that simple. You know, if you're breathing like shallow through your chest, through your mouth, that already, just by doing that, will shift your mental state. And if that becomes your default, well, no wonder you're always a bit stressed and a bit frenetic and anxious. And so it's often the simple things like that which can start moving the needle. So yeah, you're 100% right there. And also to that point, in terms of a connection piece with someone, like in terms of intimacy, being able to regulate and breathe with someone with a bit of light contact, you know, like when you look in someone's eyes, for example, and you breathe with them, the level of connection that you can bring and the depth that you can bring in intimacy. And intimacy doesn't have to necessarily mean sex. I mean, yes, it can be with your partner, but it also can be with a friend. Like we're looking at, you know, engaging each other's eyes right now, and it's a really great way to build a strong connection as well with like, we're breathing together, and it can totally change the whole environment.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there. He said it doesn't have to be romantic. Like you can just build a friendship or whatever it may be with someone and have a better connection, understand them better, and see them for who they are, without that, oh, there needs to be more on top of this.
Yeah.
I think if we get so caught in that one of like, if you have a really strong connection with them, it's like always this default, it's either going to be romantic or we won't be that close. It's like you can be really close with people and not have a romantic relationship. Like that's completely fine as well. I was going to say, do you ever do like an audit on your life when things aren't going the way that, not even, okay, so they might be going the way you want them to go, but you still don't feel good, even though they are like when things going right, but you still don't feel good. Do you ever kind of like audit your life and kind of figure out what's happening?
I do it every quarter. So I call it vision mapping. And so I have this rough idea of the life and the business that I want to create. That's sort of up here, the big, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious future goal. And within that, then I do like 90-day blocks where there are always some core focuses. I'm like, cool, what feels like there's the most charge right now in my life? And it might be around relationships aren't feeling great at the moment, or something around my work and business isn't quite feeling right. And so I'll dial it down and pick a couple of core areas to focus on for that block of time. And then I'll literally, at the end of that quarter, I'll go back and review it. I'll be like, how does this feel? Is what I'm doing moving me to a place where I'm feeling good? Or did I think it was a good idea? Maybe it's not so much of a good idea now. And I then review. Also, this is where I use psilocybin as like my next level access to insight and clarity to see what I'm missing. And then I refine, rework it, and then go again, because often we get caught in the doing, and you can lift your head in a couple of years' time and suddenly be like, wow, I'm here, but I actually don't want to be here. I just kind of got caught in the day-to-day and doing, and lost sight of what I truly want. So yes, auditing is something I do literally every quarter. And sometimes if things are really not great, I'll do them sooner. But often a really cool process to do is to, when like you sit there and you're like, I don't feel good. Life's not going the way I want it to go. What the fuck do I do? And you can get caught up in your own head. It's just like you in this internal battle. One of the most powerful tools that I have is also using people around me who I know have my best interests at heart, and ask them to reflect. Hey, do you see anywhere that I'm maybe holding myself back? I'm struggling with this at the moment. Can you see something that I'm missing maybe? And that in itself has been one of the most, not only comforting, because it's nice to suddenly have a chat to someone and be like, hey, this is what's actually going on for me, but also to hear outside perspectives. And it's like, I never even thought of that. And you've been behaving in this way that's holding you back or limiting you in some way. And so the power of having people reflect blind spots to you is huge.
And you got to be, it's a skill to be harsh but fair, and honest but fair. And if you've got people like that in your life, also your reaction has to be understanding to that as well. Because how often, and I know I should have more like tough conversations than I do. Like tough conversations make the world go so much smoother. But there's so many times where I'm like, kind of, it's not worth it. But like, is it or isn't it? And you know what I mean? It's like, for example, if someone does something that really pisses you off, but you're kind of like, well, I'm just going to leave that and not bring it up because you don't want the arse ache and the conflict that comes along with it. But then also, if you just said, hey, like, I don't like that you do this. Can you stop doing this? And the person goes, oh, I never knew that. Sorry, I'll stop doing that. It can be that simple. Yeah. Or maybe they'll bite back. You don't know. But the thing is, if you don't have those conversations, it's like I always think this, like in a relationship, and a relationship ends, and all your dirty laundry comes up, all this shit comes up. You do this, you did that, you did. And like, why was that never spoken about when we were together? It's like people try and please the partners by hiding away all the things that actually upset them, annoy them, make them actually want to pull away. Yep. Where if you had those conversations early on and said, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, maybe go, oh, actually, I don't even care that much about those things. I'm going to stop doing them. Like, let's make this work. But we don't want to have those tough conversations. And because of that, so many things just go downhill. And I know I'm guilty of that all the time, but it's like having those hard conversations as soon as they arise, and not getting stuck in your own head about, oh, but it might make the friendship worse or might make the relationship worse. But the fact that now you're thinking about it, you've already started like a little spot fire that's going to probably like take off in a direction that you don't want it to go.
It's one of the biggest disservices you can do to yourself and to the other person and friendship, because that'll just fester and grow, and it'll develop more resentment, and then you'll start treating them most likely in little ways here to get back at them or teach them a little lesson, and they're sitting there going, why is this guy why is he being a prick suddenly? Rah, rah. And that over time is more likely to destroy the friendship than you calling something out early. I remember back in the old days, I was pretty strong-willed, very close-minded, aggressive, like, and if you told me something I didn't agree with, you'd fucking know about it. And I'd be like, nah. And I still remember one of my best mate, he still is to this day. I was just doing my thing in my selfish way, and he pulled me up on it. And I could tell he was like shitting himself because I'd like, fire back. And at the time, I kind of didn't really take it on, but I kind of did. And it landed for me. And to this day, I was like, bro, you love me enough to have the balls to call me out on that. And he's my boy. And I was like, thank you for doing that. And then moving forward, I spent the last sort of 5 years I was in business and living with Blake as one of my good mates, and we were ex-business partners. And we were chatting the other day, so I was like, how are you guys like living together, working together, do all this stuff together? And we literally had every month we're called Challenge and Champion. We would actually create an environment like this, and we would have to come to the table with at least one thing about the other person that we wanted to like champion them on. Like, dude, I've seen you doing this lately, fucking sick, rah rah, and a challenge. And it'd be like, this is one thing I want you to, an opportunity for you, I think you could work on, or something that I've noticed, and blah blah. And it created an environment around the feedback, so you're ready to hear it, not like off the cuff before you go on to bed, make a snarl comment, have a go at someone. It's like, let's create an environment here. It's like, I just want to give you some feedback. It's coming from love, and this is how it makes me feel, and here it is. And that changed the game for our business and relationship and mateship to the point where we barely had any arguments. And the only arguments we had were when we didn't call each other out. That was the only cause of arguments. So you're 100% on point there, that it's the most important thing to be able to do in a relationship is share the story you're telling yourself for what you're feeling, for the better of that relationship to grow.
Yeah, check in properly and actually go, hey, this is making me feel like this. And don't do it in a way that's like attacking them.
Yeah, that's the key.
But say, hey, like this is what you have done, or what you are doing is making me feel like this. And like the biggest thing you can do is, like, I always say, like, you can't change people. You shouldn't try and change people. You can just pretty much say, this is how it's making me feel, maybe give them some advice on how they could maybe do better. But at the end of the day, if they don't want to change, you just have to remove yourself and leave the situation, and like being okay with that. Be like, hey, this is making me feel a certain way. I don't want to feel that way. Maybe doing this could help. If you're not willing to do that, which is totally fine, I'm going to go. And it's like, everyone always has that I can go card that they should pull, but so many people hold on to the idea. It's like, oh no, because of whatever reason they can come up with in their brain. But it's like, if someone's making you feel a certain way that you don't want to keep feeling, remove yourself.
Yeah.
Like, just get out of there. But like you said there, it's like, if you can have productive check-ins for the pros and the cons, like, you need, what is it called? Like the kind of like shit sandwich. Like, it's like
it's a good thing.
It's a negative, negative thing, good thing, negative thing to work on, because otherwise, like, some people are just oblivious to things that they're doing, because like, we're all in our own worlds. Like, life becomes a bit of a rush, and you start doing the things you think you should do, and it's trying to be aware enough to know when, okay, maybe I am doing it. Because how often do you do something and it's not a bad intention whatsoever, but someone can take it that way.
Yep.
And then someone can run in their own mind, and it's just like, you came up with that? Like, I heard this thing the other day, I won't go into it, but a friend's girlfriend got really upset and annoyed because he was doing something, and he just explained he was doing it for him, and it had nothing to do with anything that she thought, but like, she created this story in her head that was just out of thin air. And he's just like, what do you mean? And started acting upon those emotions that you create a story, and then you start to like live in that story. And that story can be so far from reality that you go, wait, how the fuck did I get here now? And you just, it builds and builds and builds.
It's can be the creation of so much of your own suffering and anxiety. Like, when I've had periods where there's been something going on with, say, a girl, and I'm like sitting here, my stomach's churning, I can't sleep properly, whatever it is, blah, blah. And I've got these stories going, and then we have the conversation. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
immediately, it all drops. It's gone. But it's also the conversations with people is also an opportunity for you to, I don't want to use the word test, but give people the chance to show, are they still the kind of person that you want in your life? Because I think as human beings, it's in our nature to grow. It's what we do. We grow, we evolve. And it doesn't mean you become better than anyone else. You just might become less aligned, which is fine. And I feel that we often tend to want to hang on to people because we don't want to lose friends or become lonely or be known as the person who couldn't hang on to the friends or whatever the story is. However, you could be blocking a whole new, even more aligned group of friends coming in because you're holding on to the old ones. And so by expressing whatever's going on in your mind, which is most likely going to be also expressing like what your values are, provides an opportunity for that person to show, are they going to evolve and grow with you or not? And if not, are you able to let that sort of fizzle out, which creates space for new people to drop in? Because I often hear people like, oh, I'm not really, my friend group, I kind of feel like I've outgrown them. I don't know what it is, but they're still kind of going back and hanging out, and they're kind of stuck in this in between. They're not really enjoying it. And it's like, there's that uncomfortable space between where there might be a bit of a patch where you maybe don't have as many friends as you used to and have to spend a bit of time alone, but it'll get better again. The ones will start dropping in once you make it clear to the world, to the universe, to everyone else, this is what I'm accepting and what I want to bring in, and this is what I don't accept and don't want to bring in.
But even with that, you said like it gets better with more people coming in. But even if no one comes in, you get better at dealing with being alone as well, which is great. And like, for example, whenever I travel by myself, it's a completely different experience than when I travel with a group or travel with other people. Like, it's so different. And a lot of people never travel by themselves because they don't want to be alone. But you don't understand, when you're alone, you are so much more likely to be not forced, but fall into situations with other people, because it's easier for someone to approach you if you're by yourself than whether you're in a group of 10 people or 5 people or you're with your girlfriend. So you will engage with more people, just the fact that you kind of are, like, people are friendly. Like most places, people are friendly. If they see someone by yourself, they go, oh, like, what are you doing, or what's happening, or where are you going? And also put yourself in situations that it is group building stuff, like go to a gym, go surfing, like go somewhere, like go do something where it's like a group of people with a similar interest that are actually like doing the thing that you enjoy. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you go and do the things that you enjoy, you will find other people doing the same things that you enjoy, and they'll most likely be like-minded enough that they'll probably have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And stop putting up this wall that everyone's so different. When you actually start talking to people, everyone's so similar and everyone's going through similar things. So it's like, be open enough to kind of not put the olive branch out, but even just say something. Just like give them a compliment, just something small, and then that can build on something way more. But it's like, if someone came up and complimented you, you'd go, oh, thanks. And you'd be more open to have a conversation with them. Whether if they just like, oh no, they wouldn't like to hear that. It's like, who wouldn't like to hear a compliment? You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You mentioned before when you were trying to figure yourself out or audit yourself if things weren't going right. Have you been in a situation where, like you said, like you've actually achieved something you've really wanted to achieve, and then it wasn't like you expected?
Yeah. So I guess prior to me working for myself, I was employed in a company, and I was good at what I did, and I was working towards, I was kind of known as the golden boy. It was a bit of a joke because I had sort of the clear pathway up, etc. And I got to the point where I've been in the industry. It was in the alcohol industry, so I worked in the booze game, and I'd worked my way up, and had a good network and relationships and all this sort of stuff, and it made sense. I've been there. In total, it had been almost a decade I'd spent in that industry, and it made absolute sense for everyone. It's like, Next step is to launch my own distillery, of course. That's what I would do, right? Blah, blah. And I got to the point where I had the business plan, had a distiller, had a location, we're going to go. And literally it was from a mentor who said, do you really want to do this? And I was like, yes. He's like, do you really want to do this? I don't think this is actually what you want to do. And I was so caught up in wanting to own something, like own a business. And because I'd worked so hard and focused on growing myself in the industry, that made sense. And I'd got myself to a good position. So I kind of by default was going down that path. And it wasn't until someone else sort of pulled me up and was like, is this really what you want? And I had to really sit with it. And this is where I had to look and go, what do I actually want to create? Do I actually love this, or am I just in it because I'm in it?
And you're good at it.
Yeah, and I'm good at it. That's the zone of excellence, right? And a bit of sunk cost fallacy. I'd spent that much time in the industry, and I look back now, I would have been miserable. I'm like, fuck, thank God I didn't push down that and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and had the ability to. At that time, it wasn't a self-audit. It was forced. Someone else, that was the first time I really thought about it. Someone else sort of tapped me and goes, think about this. And that was a bit of a transition. That was the biggest transition of my whole life into now working for myself and working in wellness and, performance and helping with their purpose. And it's just like, what a game changer. But it came from stopping for a moment and having an audit.
How was that self-talk, though, when your mentor did say that to when you actually made the decision to pull the pin?
There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear around, can I make something else outside of it work? But to be honest, what strange enough happened is this opportunity just popped up because I took the blinkers off. And for the first time, I was like, maybe I could step outside of this industry and do something different. It was almost like the universe gave me this little gift. It's like, here. And this is the first study I ever did in wellness, was to become a meditation teacher in Vedic meditation. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. And it was just like, it was almost like I didn't have to do anything. It just sort of was there. And that was the transition. And it was a lot of bit of internal talk, but I think there was a few people that also were a bit surprised. They're like, what are you, if people who knew me back then, they're like, you're doing what? And there's a lot of confusion around me, the sort of person I was to be going down this path. But I've always had this knowing that I was here to do something of impact. I didn't know what that meant for a long, long time. And I thought, am I fucking delusional? Do you know what I mean? Am I just this idiot who thinks I'm kind of special? And it's not about being special. It's I want to do something that has an impact on people's lives, something bigger. I didn't know what the hell that meant. And that was always in the back of my mind. And when the mentor he probed me on it, that made me sort of think. And I was like, oh, okay. And I spent the next sort of 8 years developing processes around this. And it's like, okay, I get what I kind of did there by accident now. How can I help other people save themselves 10 years of fucking heartache, going down the wrong path or building something they hate, to do these audits and shift the direction sooner.
Well, even with the alcohol, was there any a conflict of interest with the alcohol? And obviously everyone can drink sensibly, but whatever it may be, but it's you've gone from supplying people with poison to actually helping people figure out their lives. There's got to be a difference in fulfillment and goal chasing in those two things.
Yeah. So what was actually interesting was I didn't leave the industry straight away. I'd blended them for a while. And this is when I started to realize what my purpose and genius was. I was like, I can actually do this and bring it into my industry. I don't have to go start a fucking charity somewhere or, whatever it was. And what I started doing was when I worked with sort of higher profile bars or venues, I would not only, so often I'd go in and I'd say, teach them about gin, for example. We'd go in and do gin tastings and I'd teach them about it and how it's made and blah, blah. We'd taste it. What I would do is first do a mindfulness session and then we'd mindfully taste the gin, smell, how does it look? And I started then teaching these bartenders or professional bartenders, because they're anxious as fuck half the time, right? And they're spending their whole life, and I spent a good chunk of my life doing this as well, where you're either, snorting lines or shotting tequila, and that's how you operate. So there's a price to pay for that. And so what I actually was doing was then adding value to not only here's the gin, but also here's a performance technique to help you reduce anxiety and taste the gin better and blah, blah. So actually what I did was I started bringing it in and blending it together. Some people said I was like, they gave me a bit of shit, like you're a walking contradiction. And I was like, well, that's your perception of it. This is how I see it. And they're like, huh, okay. Because and still to this day, I still drink. I love having a drink. And I still love to party sometimes. But my relationships with it's changed. And I have these amazing tools that can help me. Because, I have a big night the next day. I'd notice the blues. I feel it. But I've also got the tools now that can help me lessen the impact of that. So initially, from the outside, it kind of looked like a conflict. But in the end, I kind of managed to blend it together. And I had a lot of clients who are people that would have never considered meditation or going down this path at all until they saw sort of this guy who was still a bit loose and still swore and wild and not wearing robes, etc., working with things like meditation and breath and personal development. And that was actually a really cool transition for me.
Like you said there, it's just like lessen the impact that something bad will have on your life. But that doesn't mean getting rid of it altogether.
No.
And I don't think you should.
Nope.
I think, like, for example, like the 75 hard challenge. I see I've got a lot of friends that have done it or are doing it. And I've always looked at it and I was like, kind of want to give it a try, but also like, I like to have a wine with dinner. I might not want to drink 3 gallons of water. You know what I mean? Like, I think this whole, like, I feel like you should almost build your own challenge and set it up that, okay, maybe I'll just have like 1 wine a week if I go out for dinner with some friends, because like I love connection. That's a good way to have connection. You meet friends, you have a wine. I think when bad things get umbrellaed into this whole idea, it's like drinking is bad, smoking weed is bad, doing MDMA is bad, doing like psilocybin is bad. It's like you don't give it the space that it actually deserves and how much it can help people in different ways. And it's like, as soon as you tell someone that something is bad and you don't actually teach them what it is, it's like the classic thing for like a protective father, and he's got a girl that's just turned 18. You can't go out, you can't drink, you can't do drugs, you can't talk to boys. The fuck do you think she's going to do? All 3 of those things in one night. So it's like, if you can say, hey, like, this is what will happen if you do this. There are benefits, there are negatives, like everything in life. And it's like, if you can give someone the tools and understanding to go, hey, you can use this. This is what you probably feel. I wouldn't use it with this, or I wouldn't do it with that. And actually give someone more of a playbook on doing these things. Because like, and again, some people just shouldn't do certain drugs or drink. Yep. It's how it is what it is. But some people can use it with great benefit. Some people can, you say, go out, have a few drinks, have a great time, have a laugh, be nicer to everyone, be more friendly, go home, fall asleep, wake up, go for a run, life's good.
Yep.
And it's like the whole, like, like the yin and yang symbol. And it's like, there's always like a little bit of good and bad, and there's always a bit of bad and good. So it's like, if by doing what you were doing, you were giving people that little bit of good with, like, alcohol's not good or bad, it's whatever you make it to be. But from the outside, people saying you're a contradiction because you're giving something that can cause something bad, but you're kind of giving people the tools to deal with it. Yep. It's like, I'd rather someone gave me an axe and said, this is how you cut down trees and make firewood, instead of someone gave me an axe and you're like, well, do I start killing people with this? Like, you know what you know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is a bad axe. But it's like, no, it's a tool. It's like a mobile phones, for example. Like, is saying that a phone's a bad thing is such bullshit, because it can help so many people change their lives forever. But because we all get stuck scrolling in them, they've got this reputation of being something that's terrible now. And it's like, no, it can go as either way. It's like how you use it is the thing.
Well, I guess that's looking at living a sustainable lifestyle that you enjoy, and to your point around the 75 hard, that's unsustainable. And so you're doing all these things that you're most likely never going to continue again after that. Most people don't last. I hear that in people that start it and they get halfway, they're like, nah, next, too much. and they go right back to the old ways again. Or you finish a 30-day cleanse and you go have a blowout and eat burgers and you know, and fuck yourself that next weekend and go for a massive piss up. So in terms of like longevity, what's sustainable, but also like what's your why behind the things that you do in terms of like when you drink, why do you do it? It's because I just feel stressed and I want to numb. Maybe something to consider. Or is it I love the taste of a glass of red wine when I'm sitting at home cooking a steak and making dinner and I'm like, there we go, that's beautiful. And so, and that's what, for example, I used to be. Now when I think about it, I actually probably was almost an alcoholic. I used to drink every day. And so I never really considered it because that's just how I used to operate.
You're in the industry.
I was in the industry, yeah. A day off was a bottle of wine by myself. You know what I mean? That was a day off. And so when I look back on that, I was like, huh. But there was the enjoyment and the pleasure had gone around it. You know, I'd be out in the town. I'd be the last drinking just for the sake of drinking to find the next high and hopefully make things more fun and better. And it was destructive as well because obviously the way you behave isn't always ideal when you're, you know, drinking that much. And now it shifted to, like, I still love to have a drink. Like, I love drinking bourbon with some salted nuts as I'm cooking dinner, or, you know, a glass of wine and when I'm out, or margaritas, Negronis. Like, I can sit and drink dirty martinis all afternoon, and it's great and it's fun. But there's a level of, like, mindfulness, and I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I can stop. Now it's like, you know what? This is not where I want it to go tonight. Let's pull the pin. Where I was always chasing the dream, you know, because that was when I was. I'm sure you've experienced this as well. When you're not satisfied with life and yourself, you're always searching for something outside of you. And for me, what I knew was drugs and alcohol. I was like, well, maybe this is going to help me find something that makes me feel better, and it did for moments. But it was this vicious cycle because then the drop down would be lower, get back up again, and it wasn't until I started to live a life that was more fulfilling to me in other ways that I didn't become reliant on drugs and alcohol to make me feel connected, feel more alive, feel more happy.
Was there a point, like almost like a low point or a rock bottom you felt with the whole drinking where you're like, I got to change this. This isn't me.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few times there where I was, you know, I'd wake up on a Monday morning to go to. I remember I've woken up on the floor, woke up on the floor, and I was like, "Where the fuck am I?" And I was like, had to get ready for work, and I was like, "This isn't good." And then also a part of it was also from like some friends a few times reflected some things, because I was quite arrogant back in the day. But you know, there was ways I would behave that were quite self-absorbed and blah, blah, when you're drinking like that. And so there was some times where I would like wake up and feel like that. And I'd be like, is this it? Like, is this what life is? And then if the people that you love and the friends every now and then would make a comment saying, hey dude, like you're being a bit disrespectful here or blah, blah. That hurts to hear that as well from people. And especially from people that you do care about. So there was some blocks there where I would wake up and feel like shit and be like, what am I like?
Did you feel, because you said obviously you're in that environment, that's your work and everything like that, but
it continued after for a bit. Like,
well, I was just gonna say, have you ever kind of pinpointed what you think the main reason behind why you were drinking so much and why you were partying and doing drugs? Like, was there a deep-seated thing that was kind of trying to hide from or cover or distract?
Well, a big part of it was to feel. So, okay, let's take a step back. So, let's go back to primary school life. I was the bullied kid. So, not bottom of the school, but like bullied. I was a little bit tanned or darker, had a weird name. Janoah is an unusual name. And I was quite a soft kid. And I got picked on, bullied, made to feel like an outsider. And I don't really remember this much of it. Obviously, I've blocked it out and I was quite young. But Mum used to say she used to dread dropping me at school every day. And then I'd come home, like, I'd walk back to the car, like, keep a strong face, then, like, burst into tears in the car. And now I look back and go, how fucking heartbreaking for a parent to see your child go through that. And so I didn't think I was very valuable or a very good person for who I was, which was naturally quite a soft kid, blah blah. And then when I moved into high school, things shifted, and it wasn't because suddenly people realized that I was a good guy. It was because I became strong and fit and good at sport. So I was the AFL captain and the sports captain. And then girls were interested in me, so I did well with girls. And suddenly my identity was the sports guy who was kind of good with girls and who, and then that's when the sort of the party sort of started, would drink at parties, and I had to be the guy. And I'd also developed severe fucking anxiety. So I'd vomit from anxiety. And it was mainly around two things: girls and sport. The two things that made me who I was in the school. And so, great way to numb anxiety also, and you have confidence, is drinking. And of course, I had to keep being good with girls and all this kind of stuff. So it went from, had this identity of sport, girls, and then when I kind of finished high school, sport kind of ended. Like I sort of had an opportunity to potentially pursue football at AFL. And I was in the 19s at that point. I mean, who knows if I would have made it anywhere? Maybe not, maybe. But I decided to leave all that behind, and I moved to the city, and that's when I started hospitality, but I also studied and etc. And so I was like, cool, without sport, who am I? And I was like, I became the party guy. I was the guy who was the life of the party and the confident and the blah blah and the fun, and again, a big part of that, the alcohol was good to, settle the nerves and the anxiety, and I could show up how I wanted to show up, and so it evolved from there into to the point where it then became part of just who I was. And then there was obviously the destructive byproduct of me drinking that much and all the drugs that came with it, and the behaviours. So that was when I actually think and zoom back, that was sort of the evolution of where booze became such a big part of my life.
You create an identity that then you feel like you have to fill the shoes of that identity.
Yeah, yeah.
And you get caught up in, if I don't play the person that I've been trying so hard to play, who do people think I am?
Yeah.
And then it comes back to, who am I, and do I want to be that person? If I am that person, other people want to be around that person.
Yeah.
And I've got a close friend of mine, and he would always flake and just bail on things we would do. And one day I just got sick of it. I called him out. I was like, man, why do you keep bailing? And he's like, honestly, man, I feel like I've got to show up as a certain person, because he's a real out there, funny guy. He's like at a party or something, or at an event, he's the guy.
Yeah, okay.
He's like loud, he's funny, he's just on. And he's like, if I feel like I can't live up to that person that I've created, I don't want to be there. And that's a hard thing to live up to every time you go to an event or a party. And I never thought about it like that. And I was like, yeah, man, you've created this version of yourself that you can't step away from. Even though if you rocked up and just fucking sat in the corner and went on your phone, no one's going to care. Yep. Like, this idea that people care about what you do and who you are is such bullshit. Like, we're so caught up in our own heads about our own things that we're doing. Like, the amount of times that you would see, just say you're going down the main street of Burleigh, you see someone like trip over and land on their face. You go, oh, that sucks. And then it's out of your mind. And that person is probably like, oh, everyone saw me, my life's over. Like, not to that extent, but you know what I mean? Like, they're so caught up in their own shit that they think all these people actually care about that, where it doesn't matter. And it's probably the biggest reason why so many people don't step out of their comfort zone to do things, because of this opinion of what everyone else thinks. But when you're on the other side of that, seeing someone actually give something a go, most of the time you're probably a little bit jealous that you don't have the confidence that they have. Like, it's not a feeling of judgment. It's a feeling of like, oh, I wish I could be that person. Like, that's what it carries with it. But we all look at it as like, oh, they're going to judge me. And even if they are judging you, who gives a fuck? It's like the whole idea. It's like, why would you care about judgment of people doing the things that that don't even have the willpower or motivation to suit up and try themselves? So it's like, why get worried about it? It's like, are they doing what you want to do? No. So why the fuck do you care about it? Why do you care about people's opinion that have never done anything close to what you want to do with your life?
Yep. I actually spoke about this the other day around there are the two types of people in this world. There's like the creators who are in the arena getting shit done, having a crack, and there's the critics or the spectators. And the creators are like the visionaries. They're the people who are like, you know what, I'm going to try something. I'm not here to play mediocre, and I'm going to pursue this try this, step out of my comfort zone, take a risk, and it's the spectators and the critics who are the ones who are too scared to do that thing, or they've wanted to do something similar and they haven't had the balls to do it, and they're the first to then judge or be the critic, but they're the ones sitting on the sidelines. And what I've experienced is that most people that judge you, criticize you, it has zero to do with you and all to do with their own self-loathing for the fact that they couldn't step up and do something similar. And because I used to sometimes, you get caught up in the bitching with people. Like, I remember that when I was in Sydney, you get caught up in, this person, rah, rah, and I'd get caught up in it. And then I was like, this is fucking gross. And then it shifted, and I totally shifted my perspective, and I looked at that, the idea of like those in the arena, those creating the visionaries, the ones having a crack. And I was like, they're the ones I respect. They're the ones whose podcasts I'm listening to, whose books I'm reading, whose movies I'm watching. Like, they're the people that I respect. And I was like, now I look at it and go, say we're out at a bar and one of my mates goes up and gets rejected 5 times by girls. I'm like, fucking respect, bro. And that's in my head. I'm like, fuck yeah, because you had the balls to do that and I didn't. And there's no like, oh, you idiot. Like, and it's same with business. When I speak to people and they're like, yeah, I failed the last 5 businesses, I'm like, hell yeah, because you're having a crack. What's next? Let's go. As opposed to the person who's sitting there in the corner playing it safe, watching everyone else still working the same old job they're not satisfied with because they're too scared to. The judgment often comes from their own pain. And it's almost like my reaction now is sympathy. It's like, for you to feel that much pain that you need to judge this person for whatever that is, like, I'm sorry. I don't necessarily say that to them, but that's now how I flip it, and it just takes the pressure off.
It's amazing how quickly all the failures fade away when you get one success.
Right? Yeah.
They go so quickly.
It's learning.
But yeah, just keep showing up, keep going.
It's the pathway. It's what I used to, again, this big fear around like rejection and failure for me was huge. And it's taken me a while to get around and be like, no, that is the journey. Like, people don't just suddenly become successful. It's failure, rejection, fuck up, lesson, rock bottom, failure again. That's the journey. That's literally the pathway. And it's like, and I've created this thing at the end, and people often don't see that or don't want to see that. They want to see the overnight success, and they miss the 10 years of them lying up in bed with staring at the ceiling going, how am I going to make this work? Oh, I don't know what to do with myself, and they miss those bits. No one sees those bits. But that is the journey. That's what I'm learning now. Like, this last few years has been challenging as fuck for me in multiple ways. But I'm like, I literally get up, wipe the blood off. I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Let's go. What's next? And I look forward to the time where I'm like, that's what it was all for.
Yeah.
Shorten the hindsight gap. Yeah, and be like, and I still obviously try to. There's some times when it's easier to be like, yeah, this is all part of it, and sometimes where it's harder. And it's like when you're in it and it's like, I know I should be okay with this and know it's part of the journey, but it's fucking hard right now. And I try to look back and be like, there's going to be a story one day. Come on, brother, let's go.
Yeah, it can still suck.
Yeah, fuck oath it sucks. It can really, really suck.
Yeah, I hate when people that are successful and are just like, I've got no regrets, it all happens for a reason, blah, 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 all this stuff. And you can go, yeah, like, I fully agree, but there is still some shit times to get, like, masked into that building process. And to not hide that and go, shit gets hard. You don't want to do it all the time. You might want to quit. Like, even the successful people that have made it have felt those same emotions on the way to get where they are now, and continue to feel it because they keep pushing. It's like, I don't think they want to settle. Like, you want to keep building on what you've got there. Yeah.
And if you do continue to push and step into the unknown and step out of the comfort, you're always going to feel a level of, there's going to be some pain, there's going to be some challenge, and that's part of it. But not everyone's built for that, which is also okay. Like, some people, certainty is a really, really important value for theirs. So it's like, okay, just stick to what feels comfortable, and that's fine. But for the people that's not, and for anyone who listens and is successful, I think for me, some of the most valuable lessons that I hear from the successful people sharing their shit dark moments, and I'm like, it's not just me. They're the tips of how they got successful and that kind of stuff is cool, but actually often get more value from knowing like, oh, you were in it with me at some point.
Yeah,
And
you humanize
yeah,
yourselves.
yeah, and that's super valuable. So it's like if you can share your shit, it also opens the door for someone else to go, oh yeah, me too. I'm actually feeling this too, from someone who's respectable. When I'm sitting in a room and someone who I respect is like shares their when they're in a hole and their dark shit, I'm like, the fact that you had the confidence to do that, I'm like, you went up a notch. Not the fact that you're rock bottom or you failed this thing, but you go up a notch in my mind. So I think the ability to share what hasn't worked or when you were struggling, if you've got the strength to do that, I don't think you'd realize the impact that can have on someone else who's going through it. You know, that they're saying someone, you know, you often get on Instagram randomly, someone's like, oh, thanks, I had to hear this today. And I was like, it's like a throwaway comment, something for me. And I was like, I didn't realize. So, and this kind of ties to your point of, you know, who gives a fuck, and no one really, you don't know what everyone else is thinking, and you don't know what anyone else is thinking, and it's often their own stuff going on. And by you throwing, you know, sharing something, who knows what those little 5 words could mean for that person who was sitting there in a dark room scrolling Instagram, who happened to come across one of your stories or something, and you're like, and what you said was like, oh, gave them a little bit of light. So that's the power of sharing.
You don't know the impact it has, and you can't quantify it. It's so hard because I guess with me, I get points, especially doing this, because like it doesn't really make that much money. It's like obviously a passion that I want to grow and build into something. But right now, it's like it's not really like if you're looking at dollar figures of success and even like downloads like coming out of the mountain biking world, going to more just not everyday people, like obviously still with cool stories, but it's like there's been a drop off in I guess when you look at like views and like all of that, it's changed and it's like building again, like it's a kind of rebuilding, rebranding, but it's hard to kind of in some ways go backwards. And it's like I know it's going to go backwards and then build again, but it's like it gets hard sometimes and it's not as motivating to obviously do something that doesn't have that much return on it. But then like for example off the top of my head, like this lady messaged me and she was a psychologist and she saw a clip that I put up and she showed her patients and she explained like this is a way to help deal with, I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, a psychologist is using stuff I'm saying to help her patients. Like, fuck, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I have just every now and again you get a random person come up to you and you're like, you help me with something.
Yeah.
Like a clip that you put up of you speaking helped me in my life in some way. And that feels real. Like it is real. And it feels like that feels, and they go, okay, I actually I want to keep doing this. Because when you see like a video get 100,000 views or 200,000 views and it gets like, what impact is that actually having? Like how many people have you actually helped with that one little, and it's going to be a range of helping people like no end. Like it might save someone's life and then it might just make someone feel better in a moment. Like you don't know what the impact that actually has, but I think as long as you know you're putting out stuff that has a good message behind it, and you feel proud to put out, then like that should be a win, and not to get so caught up as hard as it is on the return that comes back, whether that's money, likes, views, whatever it may be, and just be happy and content with putting out that content. Because like how I mentioned with you, that video that I put out recently that did quite well, it's like, I don't know what it is, but you kind of feel when something's going to do well. For whatever reason, it's like this feeling in like my stomach where I'm like, I feel like this has got something good in it. And it's happened more times than not where I like, okay, this is a good one. Sometimes it doesn't, and that sucks when it doesn't hit like how you think. But then a lot of the time you put something out there and you're like, because that's all you're really trying to do is create feelings in people. And a lot of the time, like I just did a podcast with Paddy McRae, who is the lead singer of the Dregs, and he said that he sings happy songs, but his lyrics are sad. And I've really he kind of not caught me off guard, but I've really thought about that. And it's like he has the impact of singing songs that sound happy, but he's using sad lyrics. And I guess the whole thing behind that is you relate a lot more when something's sad, when something can touch a nerve and talk about something you actually don't want to talk about, but do it in a happy way that actually makes you feel like good about that. Because like every bad thing has some good in it, every good thing has some bad in it. So if you can like pull good out of the bad, which he's doing with his music, it's like everything gets better. Yeah.
I was literally thinking about this concept the other day around kind of the ROI of things,
Yeah.
and what it actually dropped in as I was on a little mini journey, and what was so clear was it's just around like creating value. Value is the energy, and money is just one currency of value. Right? There's other ways you can get value in your life. People, opportunities, gifts, money is one of them. And if your intention is to lead, to give something so you can get something back in return straight away, it's like a closed loop. Like, and it's very, you've got this it's like vat of like, I'm only giving just enough so I can get this back in and I want to store it here. Versus, how can I give as much value, create value, create value, and that creates like a suck, like a vacuum and a loop. And so for example, a podcast like this is creating value for people. And so the more value you create in people's lives, the way I see it is more value is going to come back around, and there's that latent potential where it's not as immediate as well. Like the consistent, and I've made this mistake in the past where I have created things of value, but with the clear intention to receive something very specific back and over a short period of time. And sometimes that's okay in business, like you got to make some bank, whatever. But there was a consistent habit I was doing that, and I'd only get back the same level of what I was kind of creating. I was like, why can't things get bigger? And that's just when it dropped in. I was like, I just need to create more value, full stop, just because. And I was like, huh. And that's totally shifted my view on these things. And as soon as what I used to do was like create something, be like looking around for, okay, when's it coming back? Or, where's the money or whatever it looks like, versus how can I create value? How can I create value here? How can I create value there? And just see what plays out in the future, and also not be attached to how it looks in terms of the ROI component. What's the return look like? It might be something totally different to what you had in mind. And that allows for a way more dynamic, expansive, exciting, creative life. If you're like, I'm just going to create as much fucking value as I can, and I wonder how it's going to come back or what it looks like for me, and be open to that. I get it. We've got to earn money, and I love money, and that's fine. But how can you also sort of pull back the lens a bit and see things slightly differently? And I think that's when you sort of think about the podcast, and is it making you millions of bucks? Not yet. Will it? Maybe. Will it be will something else happen as a byproduct of it? Maybe. Yeah. Which is kind of exciting, I think.
Well, I always compare it back, because obviously I'm going off my references I've got, and I just look at my racing, like mountain bike racing, and I didn't get into that to make money. I got into that because I enjoyed riding bikes with my friends, and I pushed myself, and I was healthy, and I got to travel, and all of these things. That's where the value was. It was not going into it for a dollar figure, and it took like 12 years, a little bit less, about 10 years before I actually started making any money off it. And then even then it wasn't a ridiculous amount of money. It wasn't until about 12 years after actually starting racing that I made good money. Right. So it's like, imagine doing an apprenticeship or going to uni for 12 years before you actually, all right, now you get some cash back.
Did you have a $50,000 uni debt, hex debt?
I had more than that. It's more than that. I'm buying bikes and on traveling. Yeah, equipment, traveling, competing. Like,
your folks
helped out.
Yeah.
Oh, a little bit. They definitely taught me the value of money, and they made me work for it. Yeah. They very much made me work for it, which, looking back, it's like anything. At the time, you're like, come on, like you got the cash.
Yeah,
you can help us out. And they did. Like, they did help us out for sure, but they would always be like, we'll meet you halfway, or like, you're getting in the vineyard, you're picking grapes, or you're cutting wood, or you're doing you're doing whatever. I hated the vineyard. Worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Worst thing in the world.
Especially if it's cold, like cut your fingers.
It's just sticky shit. Yeah, on a hill. Not it. Anyway, Dad gives me free wine now, so it's all come full circle. But yeah, it's that value in chasing something you would do for free and enjoying it anyway. And if you can find the things that you would do for absolutely no money and it's just enjoyment, do that. And normally, if you can stay in that long enough, people will see value in that, and they'll pay you to do it.
Yep.
It's like, what does a joker say? If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Huh.
So it's like talking about like with this, and it's like you know, when you kind of like said you know that you can be good at something, and you're just kind of waiting for that moment for it to kind of hit. And it's like you said, the consistency with it, the showing up all the time, the going through the points where you don't actually want to do it, or you question why you're doing it, or all that. And I always think that is when most people would give up.
Yes.
And with the racing, I could see that because I was racing against a lot of kids that I knew were better bike riders than me. And we got to a point where they just gave up.
Yeah.
They gave up. It got a bit harder. They had to train harder. We had to start traveling overseas. These things come up. And they just fell off and stopped doing it. And I look at them like, well, I'm going to keep doing it. And I wasn't a bad rider, but I was never like the guy. Like there was always a few kids that were always a lot better than me. And I remember like closing that gap, and just, I think it's so powerful. And I always tell parents this and kids, it's like, you're better off learning to lose early and figuring out how to win than winning early and then not knowing how to lose. Like the quicker you can become better at losing and understanding loss, failure, setbacks, because as soon as you're rock bottom, as soon as you're at the, like, how do I get up from this? How do I stand up and put more effort in? How do I keep going? How do I make this work? And I felt that a lot as a kid, because obviously you go into a sport, and I lost a lot. I remember when I first started competing in like the Victorian series, they had this one kid and he beat me every single race. Every single race he beat me. I had my best run, he'd beat me. I had my worst run, I'd be out the back, like whatever it was. And I hated it. But what did I do? I go home, maybe I need to train harder. Maybe I need to eat better. Maybe I need to sleep better. Maybe I need to work on my bike better. And it creates this momentum behind figuring yourself out and figuring out your sport. And you can just implement this in the rest of your life. But if you can just keep figuring out, okay, how do I become a better person or a better version of me, to then implement that into a sport, into a relationship, into a podcast, into whatever it is. And eventually I got to the point where I finally beat him. And then he raced the next year, and I think it was a bit of a back and forth, but I ended up beating him more times than not. And then he just quit. He literally just went, I'm not going to do this anymore. Because from the time he started racing, he got so used to winning, he never actually got taught how to lose. And then as soon as he lost, he was like, okay, well, I don't want to do this anymore. On to my next thing, which is still fine. But I'm so happy I lost in those early years, because then I understood how to lose. And I didn't like losing either. Like, it sucks. But you lose enough, you realize, okay, well, I want to learn how to win now. And then that's when you put in the real effort to then achieve those goals.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. I earlier on won a lot. And so I was the opposite, where I was fucking terrified of losing. And that's part of the anxiety that came up, because I happened to, in, school, be quite athletic. So in sports, I was winning all the time. And even coming second, it had destroyed, it wasn't okay. And what actually sometimes happened, which looking back now is not ideal, is I would sometimes not put myself in a situation out of the fear of losing. So I was that terrified of losing.
That's like my friend that wouldn't come to the party.
Yeah, right. And I was like, I look back and like, the race would be called, and I was the quickest guy. But I was like, there's another guy there. I was like, he was looking quick, and I was like, oh. I remember sometimes like half intentionally walking away when they're calling out names, so I'd miss my name and miss the race. That's how absorbed I was with winning at that point. The fact that I would actually sometimes sabotage myself if there was a fear that I might lose. And that just stops a whole level of opportunity.
Trying to live up to a version of yourself that you've created that...
Yep. Yeah, it was... And that sort of filtered through, and now that whole perspective around like failure and etc. shifted. But that was a really unfortunate way. It made things challenging for me over the next little period. But I guess this is the process over time of trying things, failing things, doing things in a certain way, and sort of backtracking a little bit to, you mentioned finding what you love and what you're good at and just do that. It takes a lot to find that. And some people might be like, yeah, that's great for you to say, mate, but I've got to pay bills and I just can't do what I love and what I'm passionate about. And sometimes if you're creative about it, when you start looking at and we were talking before around, you're starting to realize what your zone of genius is. It's like you're quite good at this dynamic and having conversations with people. Like when we're out, for example, having a drink, it's most likely that you'd be in a conversation with someone that's more beyond surface level, having a deep conversation. That's a level of zone of genius within you. And so you look at that and go, cool, this is something that I love and that I'm good at. What are all the ways that I could bring this to the world at the moment? And it might not be that you have to start a business and make money out of it, but can you do it through your work? When you interview, like every single opportunity you get, if there's something that you love and that you're great at and you start realizing often it's things that you don't even realize yourself. Like often it's great to have people like you didn't realize until you got feedback from others. You're like, okay, I'm getting common feedback from people here. This must be an area of my genius. Cool. And so this is the power of reflection from others. And it's something really cool. A cool process that I often do with people is like send messages to 5 of your closest people and ask them, what do you come to me for? What do you think are my unique skills? What do you, when you want advice, what would it be on from me? And what's one area you think I could really step into? And it'd be amazing what you get back. And then once you look at that and go, that is my genius. How can I bring it to the world? How can I do it when I'm at the shopping centre? How can I do it when I'm at work? Because that is an exciting life and fulfilling life if you're able to step into that, express your purpose and your genius in multiple ways. And the more times you do that, the more chances are of someone going, that's valuable. Maybe I'll pay you for that. Or could you do that over here? As opposed to waiting for this one grand business idea that's going to allow you to do what you're passionate about for the rest of your life and not work a day and make bank.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. I guess it just comes to putting yourself out there to do that. And when it is something that it's like the thing when you're putting yourself out there with what you think is your genius or your best version of you, like it's a pretty raw version to put out there if someone doesn't accept it. It's like when you go into something and you half-ass it. It's like, for example, John Jones, when he used to fight, he'd go out partying either the night before or the week before or whatever. So he'd almost have a built-in excuse that if he failed, I was partying last week.
Sabotage.
Yeah, sabotage. And it's like so often, I know I do that where it's like, I'm going to half-ass this.
Yep.
Because then if it fails, of course it fails. I half-ass it. Yeah, give it everything. But when, I'm dealing with this recently, like when you put all of yourself into something and really want it to work and it doesn't work and you go, fuck, that's all of me. And it wasn't enough. And obviously there's always more and there's whatever you want to say, but it's like I put my heart into this and it failed. And it's like, you kind of got to brush the knees off and keep going. But they're like, that is a hit to your mental game.
Yeah, it is. A way I love to reframe that, because I'm no stranger to failure, dude, either, is to look at it and go, maybe that's not for me. Like, what is then? Like, I'm like, if I went all in on this and fucking gave it everything and it still didn't work, must be something better out there for me then. And that's what I try, because it sucks and it's painful and it's humbling. And especially when people know that you've gone all in on something and you couldn't make it work. But one of the best ways that I manage that is to look at it and go, so what is for me then? Like, if this isn't working, there's obviously something that's meant to work for me better. And if this had worked, it'd take away my energy. I'd be caught in this. So it's like almost like the universe is like, look, we've got something better over here for you, dude. If you can just let go of this thing right now, you've tried, it's not for you. Let's go over here. And that's not easy to do, but that's what I try to do when I go in on things and they don't work like I had the idea they should have. Can take a bit of the sting out of the.
I think, and this is something that I've battled with my entire life, but it's It's not being as emotionally invested in
Yeah.
things, but also loving being emotionally invested in things, whether it be you might get a new house, like to live out of, you might end up in a new spot, you might end up on a, like you have these plans in your head and you become emotionally invested in them because it could be amazing and you think it's going to be amazing. So you build up this hype around it. And then when it doesn't pan out, it's just, it's hard to just go, oh, that's fine. And be okay with it. And like, and I know everyone says like, that's how you should be because there always could be something better around the corner. But
it can suck.
That's what I mean. It's like, I'm still struggling to work out how to be like, go with the flow and understand that if something doesn't work, there's something better around the corner. But then also get very invested and excited about something that might be coming up or something that you see a potential in. Because whether it is like a business opportunity, a girlfriend, moving to a new house, like I want to get excited about that. But then if it falls through, if it fails, whatever it may be, it's you're invested. It's hard to just go, oh, well, that's not for me. The better things around the corner. Everything's going to be fine. It's like how to just have that straight kind of cut in a way.
I think firstly, it's okay to mourn. So that's again an expression of emotion. Like it doesn't work out with a girl that you wanted to, or a business that you wanted to. Like it's okay to mourn it for a little bit. Like fuck yeah, be upset because you cared. Be upset, be angry, whatever it is, but express it like healthily, obviously. But get it out. And what I mean by that is, what I don't mean by that is vent to every second person every fucking chance you get, because that just recycles the stress and the story in your mind. You literally relive it every time you talk about it again. But what's the emotion needs to be expressed? Like, is it sadness? Go fucking bawl your eyes out in the shower. Is it anger? Go punch a pillow, do some boxing, fucking run, scream underwater. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think there's generally a place for expression and letting whatever that is out. And maybe there's a few people that you can verbally express and vent with because that's nice to get it out, but then stop reliving the story. Then, so I definitely allow the emotion to be like, oh, fuck, this hurts. This really hurts. And that might be weeks, whatever. Sometimes it lingers longer. But I find the more that I allow myself to feel it and actually go through it, once I allow that to happen and don't let myself get caught in victim, because that's the danger part. Like, express it, but you're not a victim. I mean, respect to where there are, more severe circumstances, but on the whole, you can create yourself a victim or not. And so it's like, cool, this sucked, this hurts, I'm going to cry, I'm going to be angry, blah, blah. And then then you can shift to, now I can look at, well, what's next? What's the greater opportunity that's out there for me? That's kind of how I tend to work with that. And I can now move through things pretty well, from pain to what's the opportunity in this. But it's taken years. It wasn't just like I'm just gonna, and like the whole positive thinking is a bit of a fucking bypass. Like, look at the bright side. It's like I'm a glass half full kind of guy. But also sometimes things fucking suck. Because it's also a bypass of the shit, and you got to feel the shit.
No, I agree with that, and it's with that as well. It's like it's such a heartache, business failure, self-development failure, whatever it is. Like that's a motivator, man. Like you're at the bottom. That's such a motivator because it's like you have felt that. Now you have something to run away from in the sense of like, I don't want to feel that again. I don't want to go back there again. I know what that feels like. So you are putting every bit of your energy into going the opposite direction. And that's motivating. Like you see all these memes and these jokes about like, oh, I'm glad, like I'm in a breakup, like I just needed gym motivation, or I needed this to fail. So then I knew, okay, I'm going to put effort into this other business. Like you can look at any of these things two ways, as like you said, be the victim, be the hero. Like, okay, this has gone wrong. How do I get better? And take accountability and responsibility that these things normally, if not all the time, fail because of you. Like it's so common to, oh, my relationship failed. She was a bitch. She was this. She was that. And I was like, what were you doing?
It's your part to play.
Yeah. It's obviously there's cases where someone can just be narcissistic, a shit person, but most of the time it's like, what were you maybe doing in this relationship to push them down the path to act like that?
Yep.
And as soon as you put the light back on yourself and go, okay, what do I actually need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again, or attract the right? Because you can attract the wrong people by being the way you're being and not even know it. It's like, yeah, she was a bitch and she was narcissistic, or he was, or whatever it was. But like, what energy were you putting out to the world that person was attracted to you to come in to then do the things they did? And really like analyze, like you said, do an audit on yourself and go like, why do I keep like drawing people in? Like I have a tendency of going for emotionally unavailable girls.
Magic.
And it's like, why do I keep doing that? And I'm not 100% sure why, because like I love affection, I love connection. I got a lot of it from my mum, so that's what I want. But then I'll go for people that aren't emotionally there. So I'm trying to figure that out and not just go, well, it's their fault because they're not emotionally available. Like, why am I attracting that?
Yeah, there's a piece there.
Why am I going for it? I read this thing. I actually read it this morning before I fell asleep on the beach. But it talks about like the Goldilocks theory, and it's between when you want to learn something or do something, and there's a point in the middle where you want it to be hard enough that you're failing sometimes, but not easy enough that you're winning all the time.
Just right.
And it's this middle ground. And I thought about it because I'm like, I feel like that's me in relationships. I don't want to just meet someone and it's just like, I want you, let's be together, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to just to be pulling away all the time. It's like that little bit of give and take, and people call it the chase and all that. But it's like, I feel like it's a little bit like you kind of got them, but you don't. And I'm always seem to be attracted to that. I think it stems from probably early relationships where that kind of happened, because it sounds fucking toxic, to be honest, but it's like when you don't feel like you ever truly have someone, there's always that want for more in a way, which I don't think is healthy long term for sure. But I still think comfortability, I think, kills us. And I think comfortability in a relationship is a massive killer of the relationship, because you're like, just want to sit inside and watch a movie tonight and eat fucking popcorn and pizza and just chill. It's like, we got each other, we're sweet.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a relationship, when you don't feel like you fully have that person, you feel like you need to keep to a standard to keep them. I feel like it's like, you know, when you first meet someone, you're cleaning your room, you're wearing the best clothes, you're wearing the best cologne, like you are putting in an effort. You're on, because it's like you see the value in that person and you want them to be in your life. So you're bringing your best self forward. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like how you keep doing that is the whole idea. It's like, even if you're married and you've got 3 kids, like you can't really ever own someone or have someone. So it's like that mindset going into, even at that point in a relationship, it's like, you're not really mine, and I want to keep doing the best I can to keep you in my life. Once you feel like it's like, oh, I've got you, I've got a ring on that finger, we've got kids, we've got a house, you're not going anywhere. You start to slump on things that make you who you are and make that person actually want to stay in your life. And I've seen that in relationships that are close to me, and people get comfortable and they get complacent, and then they split up, and then suddenly now they're like working on themselves again and putting in effort. And it's like, if you guys did that when you were together, you'd probably still be together, but it took you guys breaking up and not having each other then to go, well, now I need to put in work to get someone else. And I'm like, if you just put in work to keep the person, you'd still have them. So
there is, and I can't recall the name of it, but there is actually a concept around maintaining and strengthening intimacy in relationships, which is based around that. How do you keep a level of charge in the relationship, where it's almost like a slight little pullback, but not really. Like they know that you've got them, you've got each other, and there's I think super unhealthy to make people feel like they could lose you. Like that, especially if that's that avoidant anxious, a magical dynamic.
Feeling that heavy at the moment. Well, felt that heavy recently. Yeah,
bro. It sucks for the anxious.
Yep.
Yep. Scene. But there's a piece to play around that, and what often can also happen in relationships is the more time you spend together, you can actually neutralize each other. You become more alike, and for the chemistry to remain strong, there needs to be the polarity. And that is, I will, speak to the man mostly being more heavily in their masculine, and the woman being more in their feminine. It can be the other way around, which is fine. But this is just what I'm more used to, where it's important to still maintain a level of your own energy and do your own things, and not become too enmeshed and just kind of one where you do everything together and you do everything the same and there's no spark and no challenge. And if you've in a situation where like you kind of, I mean, naturally that'll happen in relationships anyway, where it'll sort of, the first part's exciting and you fuck each other's brains out and blah, blah, and it kind of, you know, plateaus a little bit. But the way to maintain that is by, like taking care of yourself, but also maintaining your own energy of who you are. And particularly in the realm of like the masculine and feminine, there needs to be one person in either side that has a stronger feminine, a stronger masculine. And sometimes what can happen is over time you lose your edge and you kind of become similar, and no wonder that's where the sexual polarity kind of disappears, and you're like, we're just kind of friends, and it's a bit like meh, and you just go for the motions, and that's when it can sort of fizzle out. So it's really important, and to your point there, important to, and this is where I think with most things, unfortunately, a lot of people wait for things to break to then go for the self-help. Like a lot of people that will suddenly be searching, it's because something's on fire. They're like, fuck, I lost my missus, or lost my boyfriend, lost my job, I had a panic attack, whatever the fuck it is. Often we just will push through and push through and push through until we get a fucking smack in the face, and then we're like scrambling for help, and it's like, this is why conversations like this are great. It's like, get in the seat now and start doing the work now, as opposed to, it's like a car, like never fucking servicing it, driving it like shit, never cleaning it, blah, blah. And then it breaks down, it costs you fucking 10K to get it fixed, versus if you just like serviced it, looked after it, took care of it, cleaned it as it went, it would have saved you money down the track and you might have kept it for longer. So it's just something to consider is, what are you actively doing to grow each area of your life, relationship, your financial growth, whatever it is for you, like actively, as opposed to waiting till things fall apart, which happens too much, I think.
I think you touched on there before as well, and a big thing that, like this made me look at it differently once I thought about it a bit more, but the difference between chemistry and connection, and how you can have great chemistry with someone. It can be amazing, sparks are flying, this is your person, this is amazing, this is crazy, but you don't actually have the connection. And the connection with someone is, you have the same values, you have the same goal, you have the same direction, and you are compatible with this connection, and it will probably work. And I think once that you have that connection, the chemistry builds off that. But if you just have chemistry and no connection, it fizzles out, and eventually you will just have a thing that is sparks and it's great, but you guys are going different directions. And there's a lot of, I guess, push and pull in that, because it's like, do I stay because it feels great? But it's also, this isn't for me. And I feel like mentally that's super draining, because it's like you're on like a fun ride, merry-go-round at the thing, and you're just like, well, this is great, but I'm kind of not wanting to be on this anymore because something's missing here. And you know there's more, and it's just like having to get off the ride when it's like, it's still fun, but I just don't think this is the ride. So yeah, it's a tricky one to figure out.
Yeah, someone was speaking about it. It was like a relationship coach or an expert, and they were speaking about the fact of like, while like, yes, like I want someone to be attractive that I'm attracted to. Like, I'm not going to date someone who I'm not attracted to, but if we're placing all our focus on that person's going to get old. Like, we're all going to age. I know when I'm in my 20s, I was like, I want to be that guy who just doesn't age. I don't know, I had this idea in my mind, but you know what? Things happen. And if you're totally just caught up in that chemistry which is often tied into a level of superficial, how they look, and there's no effort or intention placed on the actual connection, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all aligned values, but at least there's a level of respect and support for each other's values, and a sort of similar pathway and direction. If there's no attention on that, you're right, it's going to fall apart, because what's going to happen is they're not going to be as hot as they were 5 years ago, and neither are you.
It's not even that, like, not even a 5-year thing. Like, I know I've dated girls that, just been seeing girls that are absolutely gorgeous, stunning, and you obviously date a little bit, and then you get to know them a bit better. And it's not like it's not, I'm saying they're bad or anything like that, but like their values, all their again, connection might not align to what you're doing. And yeah, there's great chemistry, but that's it. And you can't build a solid relationship off just chemistry. You need chemistry and connection, and normally connection comes before or around it. Hopefully, if you can get both together, if I can lock that person down. But yeah, it's like you said, you can be with someone that's absolutely stunning, but if you're not actually connecting with them on a deeper level, eventually that's going to fade away, and you can go, hey, this isn't for me. And yeah, the quicker you can realize that and get out of that situation and not lead someone down a path that might hurt them in the long run is the better, and be straight up about it. So
what's the danger of you know how you were saying before at the beginning of a relationship, you're putting on your best front. It's the danger of putting on a front that is unsustainable, and a front that maybe isn't your truth, your ultimate truth. It's literally like false advertising. It's like the front of a shop. We sell this and do this and blah blah, and you walk in, it's like, this is not at all. This is not at all what you do. But you got me in here. Now I'm fucking like, I've just started paying for this and blah blah. And similar with that, like, and I've learnt this as well, where I thought I had to put on this front to attract, and then after a while, I wasn't the guy that they thought I necessarily was. And it's not because I'm not good enough. It's because what I put forward was false, and that's what that person was attracted to. And had I have put my more authentic or true self forward, maybe that person wouldn't have been attracted to me, but the right person who actually likes me for who I am might have had a chance to be attracted to me. So who knows, the person that you don't know what people are into, as in, like, you might be surprised by some person you never even thought would consider you, but when you're just your broken, quirky, funny, awkward self, they're like, I fucking love that. And that's something I've had to shift over time as well, as to look at it and go, cool, because a big part of having that experience of when I was younger, not being liked for who I was, I learnt the mask has to come on to be the guy that people are going to want to be attracted to. And it's and it's a consistent process still of, like, how can I peel back the layers, peel back the layers, peel back the layers. But in the end, it will make life more fun, connected, deep, which is what we want. In the end, I think connection's the core, right?
And stop wasting people's time.
Yeah,
it's just a time.
Yeah,
it's just a
it's a good
time
point.
waster. Like that's the thing that I hate when I'm the person that I feel like is wasting someone's time. Because obviously, when you meet someone, there is a time where you're like, is it right? Is it wrong? Like, you're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're deliberately doing it. But as soon as you get to a point when you've been with that person for long enough that you go, hey, this isn't it. Like, stop just wasting people's time just because you want to be loved.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that you're not returning that in that same way. And once you become aware of that and go, I know I don't see a future with this person, and I can see that they're more invested in this than I am.
Yep.
Get out.
Yep.
Just get out, because it's going to be better for the both of you. And it sucks, because, like, it does feel nice to be loved. It feels nice to be cared about. It feels nice to be looked after. Yep. But if that energy isn't matching on both sides, someone's going to get hurt more than the other person, and you're going to waste their time in the process of doing it.
It's fucking selfish. I've done that in the past where I've, like, hung on, and they've almost started pulling away because they could see it wasn't a thing, and I was so caught up in wanting to hold on to have the connection, the intimacy, and the love, also because there was nothing else necessarily available.
Little boy shit.
Right? And it's fucking bullshit. Like, it's selfish. And what's interesting enough happened is a few times it's actually happened where they've been like, nah, and they've pulled because they could tell.
You feel it, yeah.
They could feel it. Like, when you're talking, women, they are so intuitive beyond what we fucking have. And they can pick up on this. Is just coming from a male's point of view, because that's the only perspective I know. Way more intuitive than we realise, and they can pick up on that bullshit. And but it has the potential to cause some serious damage. And then, like, they'd pull away, and then once I got over the story of, like, they left or whatever it was, and I was like, I didn't actually really want that person to be my person. I just didn't want them to not choose me.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't want to be alone without them. And so it's really interesting to sort of, again, it's the ownership piece. It's like, really call yourself out and be like, what am I really doing here? Because often we can tell ourselves an amazing story of how we're trying to be this, the right guy and doing the right thing because this, and it's like there's a kind of part of you that knows like this is bullshit. If you really want to call yourself out, I'm sure you've done it. I've told many beautiful stories that make me look like I was doing the right thing, but I was like, was I?
Yeah, what's behind that?
Yeah, what's behind that?
What's the reason? The real deeper reason. I've definitely done it at times, and I think like we're all guilty of it at some extent. So it's like as long as you can catch yourself on it.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up. Like we've all got our own shit going on. Everyone's got their own shit going.
I've got 3 more questions. I don't know if we're finished that I do these, but this first one, people always hit me with, and this is the whole like got no regrets. So I dive a little bit deeper into it when I ask the question. But it's like if you go back and teach yourself a lesson about that would make your life better in the future, and everyone's like, oh, I've got no regrets. I wouldn't change anything, but there's always something that I feel like you'd want to know at an early age. Like what would you want to know from yourself at an early age? You know what it's about? It's around the failure rejection piece. It's around like get comfortable with it and try to do it as much, like almost like go try things to get the rejection and get the failure. That'd be my biggest one for sure, would be get more comfortable with that from a younger age. That would have changed a lot of things for me. Yeah, that'd be a big one. Yeah, fail quicker. Yeah, but do it more. Like almost not try to fail, but put yourself in situations where you're very likely to fail or get rejected or whatever it is, and get comfortable with that experience. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. What are you scared of? What I'm most afraid of or scared of, the only thing that really scares me is me not being able to achieve a level of impact that I want to have. How exactly that looks, I don't know, but to be lying on my deathbed and look back and go, I didn't really get to have an impact, I didn't really give it a crack, that scares the fuck out of me. To know that I didn't really give it a nudge. There. Yeah, give it a nudge. Yeah. And last one, how do you want to be remembered when you're no longer here? I would like to be remembered as the guy who made you feel valued, made you feel like more was possible. And that's a big part of when I look at my purpose here, is to help people realize and unlock their unique potential so that they can leave their mark on the world. And that's what I want to be known as and remembered for, my ability to make people see that in themselves and feel valued in themselves. You give them the tools. Yeah, so they can, because so many people have these amazing ideas and have these unique zones of genius and skills that the world misses out on if they don't express them in a way. And so many people are held back by fear and anxiety and whatever it is, that they don't do that, and the world misses out. And so do they, because it's fulfilling. And so if I could help people experience more of that, that'd be amazing to be remembered for that, both for them personally and for the impact that whatever their work is has on others. I like that. All right, Janoah, where can people find you, and what have you got planned coming up? Mate, you can, probably the best way is on Instagram. You just spell my easy name. We'll throw in a link in the notes. Yeah, and I'll throw you another link as well, which I've got this free little Unlock Genius thing you can give to people as well. What's upcoming? 2 exciting things. One is a workshop that we're doing in a place called The Nest. Have you heard of it? I've heard of this place. Good place. Good facility. Yeah. So it's like a morning session we're going to do. It's going to involve Cooper's coming down, do some gratitude work. We'll do some bit of movement. I'll do some bit of a workshop around breath and meditation, do some ice bars, and just around bringing together people, again, like-minded people who want to learn a bit about wellness and gratitude and meditation and challenge yourself in the ice bars. That's going to be fun. I love that in-person stuff. A lot of my work is often online with people. So that I'm looking forward to. And the other one is a real focus for me on a new process that I'm working on with business owners. So it's when I spoke to that purpose, for me, I see business owners and leaders are the people that have
people of influence have the ability to have a great impact at scale. So my whole process is around helping them unlock like their unique potential, unlock their purpose, get clear on their vision, and then remove the barriers, the fear, the anxiety that's blocking them, and move forward and create a plan around it. So that's this new process that I'm unraveling next week and putting out to people. You actually get to work with me over a period of time to do that, which will be sick.
Perfect. We'll put all the links and stuff in. We'll have people find you and we'll keep the vision alive.
Yeah, brother.
Sick. Appreciate it, bro.
All right, thanks for having me.
Easy. Always love the